Hey everybody, this is Gregory from Dapp University. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to set up your computer for blockchain development if you're running Windows. And I know a lot of you out there use Windows for blockchain development, and you've given me feedback on this. You've said, hey, I want to know how to do this on my Windows machine, and I've made this video just for you, okay? So this video is actually an excerpt of my Blockchain Developer Bootcamp, which launches on May 15th, 2019. So this video is actually part of the Capstone project where I show you how to build a real-world Dapp powered by Ethereum smart contracts. Inside the bootcamp, I show you how to set up your machine for Mac, Windows, and Linux. So check out dappuniversity.com/bootcamp for more info on how to join my online blockchain developer bootcamp. But until then, go ahead and enjoy this free video to show you how to set up your Windows machine for blockchain development. So yeah, this is a fresh install of Windows version 10. I haven't added anything. I've even just got the default browser. I've got PowerShell added down here. So we're gonna start from scratch. I'm gonna walk you through step by step. So I'm gonna install a lot of our system dependencies with a package manager for Windows. And specifically, I'm gonna use Chocolatey. You can go to chocolatey.org. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's a seamless way to install new packages that's going to manage our environment and things like that. Feel free to, install packages on your own if you're an experienced developer, or if you have some of these dependencies already, that's fine. But if you're less comfortable, I would suggest doing exactly what I do, because you can easily run into issues where your environment's not configured properly and you won't be able to build the Capstone project. So if you're not super comfortable with system administration, I would highly recommend that you do exactly what I do to set up your system. So I am using Chocolatey, and I'm going to download it like this. I'll install Chocolatey now, and we'll see the requirements. So we can install this from PowerShell with an exe. So we can basically just copy this command. All right, click this little copy button. And I'm going to open PowerShell as an administrator. It's important that we do that. I'm going to paste that in and hit enter. And this is going to install Chocolatey for us. All right, let's take a look where Chocolatey was installed. So you can go to your computer here. I'll show you where mine was installed. We'll go to this PC. Look at this PC. Go to C. And you want to go to, let's see here, View. Let's see, Show Hidden Files. So mine's in Program Data in Chocolatey, and the executable is inside of bin, okay? And then the exe also is up here. So you want to make sure that your path is correct. So if you go to Environment Variables, you just search for Environment here. You can edit the system environment variables, click Environment Variables, and just make sure down here in this path variable, edit, that Chocolatey is in here, okay? That's what mine looks like. So you can check to see that all this worked by going to your PowerShell and typing choco-v. All right, that should tell you the version of Chocolatey and make sure that it's installed correctly. So if you did everything right, you'll see this. If you didn't get any of this right, troubleshooting, I would make sure your path is set correctly. Make sure you can find Chocolatey on your computer. It might have installed in a different place. That's kind of why I'm trying to use Chocolatey this point forward, so that it keeps everything all in the same spot. All right, so the first package we want to install with Chocolatey is Node.js, and I specifically want to use Node version 9.10.0. So you can search for the packages on Chocolatey's website like this. I like to search it here rather than their GUI, because the search feature on their website is a little better. So anyways, it's going to give you instructions on how to install this specific version. And just remember, I want to use a specific version of Node to avoid any conflicts. So if you're an experienced developer and you know how to debug your system, then feel free to use your own version. But if you're not super comfortable, I highly recommend using the exact versions of everything that I'm using. So we can install like this. We can basically just say choco install, and then I'm just going to copy this. PowerShell running as administrator. I'm going to paste in the command. Just say like this: choco install node.install --version 9.10.0. All right. We need to authorize it to run the scripts. We'll say yes. All right, so the installation completed. So I'm going to close this and reopen PowerShell and type node-v. Boom, there we go. All right, so Node was installed. We can see that that actually worked by returning the version number. So if you didn't get anything, you need to debug your install. And I highly recommend checking out your path variable. Like you can go to environment variables and ensure that Node is in your path. So go to edit and make sure that Node's in there. And make sure it's in the right place too. Like if you can't find this file, then it's looking in the wrong place. So this should work for you. That's one of the reasons I'm using Chocolate, because it just works out of the box. All right, so let's just close PowerShell again. The next dependency is actually going to be Python. So I'm going to search for Python 2.7.5 in the Chocolate registry. So let's see here, 2.7, really any 2.7 is going to work just fine. So let's, all right, let's use this. So we'll just go Choco install Python 2. And I'll explain why I'm installing Python. So we're using Python basically to build other dependencies with Node. And we're not going to actually write any Python source code in this BOOTCAMP project, but we are going to need Python just to build some of our dependencies. So that's why I need it installed on our computer. And I'm just going to install with Chocolate here, and I'll wait for this to finish. And you'll want to authorize to run the script. All right, so this is finished installing for me. So I tried to restart my system and didn't have privileges, so it gave an error here, but it's okay. The install finished, so I'm going to restart my system. I suggest that you too, and I'll be back. All right, so I've restarted my system, and I've opened my PowerShell to check my Python install. I can do it like this. I'll say Python and do -V. And I can see Python 2.7.16 was installed. And that's the version that we need in order to build our other system dependencies. All right, the next thing we need is Visual Studio. And this is going to give us some dependencies for C++ and some other things that are going to allow us to build our dependencies for the project. So again, we're not going to write any C++ code in the bootcamp. It's just required on our system in order to build our other dependencies. So you actually want to use VS 2015, and it's hard to track down the link, but I'm going to put this link in the resources down below for the video that talks about how to find the 2015. I'm going to use the web installer. So I'll provide you all with this link, but you can search on Google for Stack Overflow how to find the 2015 version. Microsoft does have a page that allows you to register, but right now, even after you register, the link is broken. So I used this. So I'm going to do the web installer. And click run. All right, now you see this installation wizard come up, and I'm going to do custom, and I'm going to specify exactly what I want in the install. So let's see here. You want to open programming languages. We want Visual C++, basically everything in that this level. So let's see here. What else do we need? This should be everything, I believe. Yeah, the main thing are the C++ tools that come with Visual Studio 2015. All right, so we'll select that. This is going to take up 12 gigs of space, so make sure you got some room on your hard drive, and click Next, and I will run the installer, and I'll be back. All right, so now the Visual Studio installer is finished. I'm not going to click launch, actually. I'm just going to exit it. I don't really care about using Visual Studio itself. I mostly just want the tools that come with it, all right? And specifically, I just want to make sure that Microsoft C++ was installed in the right place. So if you go to your computer and you go to C, program files, x86, MS build, Microsoft's .cpp, version 4.0 and then version 140. That's what we want to make sure is installed, and this came with Visual Studio Community Edition 2015. This is really specific for building some of our dependencies for our project. All right, so now that that's installed, we want to install node-gyp. All right. And here you'll see the importance of the things we just installed. So if you search for this on your search engine, and you see the GitHub repository, this is node-gyp. Basically, if you look at the Windows setup instructions, we just did those. So you could try using Windows build tools. This did not work for me. A lot of people just say do this, but I found lots of issues doing this, so I set these things up manually. We just installed C++. I just showed you that. We installed Python earlier, 2.7. We're not going to do this because we're using version 2015, so ignore this, but we just did the other two steps. So I'm going to install this package with Node.js like this, or npm, say npm install -- global, and I'm going to actually specify a version. So I'll say node -gyp. I'm gonna use version 3.6.2. So you can specify that by saying @3.6.2. Hit enter. All right, the next thing we want to do is actually configure npm properly and make sure all our system variables are set properly to use the things we installed. So there's a GitHub issue that talks about this. So one of our dependencies is web3.js, and there's actually some nice steps inside of here that talk about what you need to change. So I'll scroll down to this, and I'll also put this link in the resources. So we've already installed, we're not going to use Windows build tools because it's not going to really work. We already installed this, and we've already got Python set differently. So don't worry about that. So what we want to do now is configure Python like this. npm config set Python, and then we say Python 2.7, and then global. All right, and then we can actually see that worked with npm config get Python. All right, see Python 2.7 was returned. And now we'll set the other values. So npm config set Python, and then we're going to actually pass in the path to the executable. So we'll verify that exists. We'll go to our computer, and we'll go to C Python 2.7, and here's the executable. So I'm just going to copy this actually. All right, like this. Paste it in. All right, that worked. And then we want to next set the version of Microsoft Visual Studio that we're using. And this is really important because we just downloaded it. And we want to tell it to use this version in particular. So say npm config set MSVS, which stands for Microsoft Visual Studio, version 2015, which is what we just installed. So paste this in there. All right, and then next we want to update our VC targets path to include Microsoft C++ that we install with Visual Studio Community. So let's verify that it exists. We'll go to C, and we'll click Program Files, x86, MS Build, which is down here, and then Microsoft C++, version 4.0, v140, and we got everything in here that we need. All right, so I'm not going to set this from the command line. I want to do it visually so that you all don't have any issues. So I'm going to go look for environment. I'm just searching for environment inside of the search bar and click system environment variables. So what we can do is actually add a user variable. So we can edit this and say, let's do VC targets path. So just like we saw here. Oops, sorry. VC targets path. Actually, I'll just copy it so we don't have any issues. All right, and then we'll go back here. Sorry, close some of the stuff down. All right, paste that in. And now we want to get this value right here. So C, program files, x86, MS build, etc., etc. We just verify that it exists. So we'll just go in here, paste, click OK. All right. And click OK. Let's close PowerShell and open it again. All right, so now we can verify that we set that with echo. We'll say echo, echo $env and say VC targets path. And there we go. It was set. So now we have correctly pointed that to the right place. Now we should have everything that we need in order to install some of our other system dependencies. Real quickly before we move on, we need to install Git. So if you have Git already installed, you can skip this step, but I forgot to do it initially. So Git is a dependency for building our project. So if you go to the Chocolatey website and you search for Git, you can just install it like this. Basically, you can just copy it, and we'll open PowerShell. And we'll just paste in this command, choco install git.install, and then type Y to continue. All right, so that installed. Next, let's just close PowerShell, reopen it. And let's say git-v. And we can see, I didn't type the right thing, so let's say git-version. Okay, so we see Git's working. So we've got 2.21.0 for Windows installed. So yeah, Git's working. All right, and you'll want to set up Git the first time. So basically, you can just use your username. So I'll say git config. I'm just going to copy this. All right. Then paste this in. I'm going to say Gregory. All right. And we'll say git config email. And you could just say, foobarexample.com. And next, you should have your settings. Git config list. And there you go. All right, so now I'm going to do a smoke test to see if a lot of our major system dependencies were installed properly. I'm actually just going to create a test directory here. I'll say, okay, your test. And I'll move into that directory. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is just try to install an npm package that uses all these dependencies. I'm actually going to install Web3.js where we saw this issue, right? So people were complaining they couldn't install this, and I want to make sure that you can install this before we continue because it's a major system dependency or probably a project dependency that relies upon all of the system dependencies we've installed up to this point. So I want to install a specific version just inside this test directory. I'm going to say npm install --save web3 at 1.0.0-beta.46. Sorry, 46. All right, hit enter. All right, and that worked for me. So that's our smoke test to make sure that our system is actually set up for all the dependencies that we've installed up to this point and that they're configured properly, okay? So you really want to make sure this passes before continuing. If you have any issues, I highly recommend going back and, checking all these steps, rewatch every part of this video where we set the paths, where the paths are, make sure that you have contents inside of these paths, because there's a lot of gotchas, and I've done a lot of hard work to really make sure that everything works up to this point. So you want to make sure everything is set correctly as I've shown you step by step up to this point. All right, so I'm going to clear this. I'm going to change directory back to my user directory. All right, now the hard part's pretty much done. The next thing we want to do is install the Ganache personal blockchain. This will allow us to install a blockchain on our computer that we can use for development purposes. And I'll show you kind of all the features of that here in a second. So we're just going to click the Windows installer. And I'm going to open it. Click install. All right, once you've launched Ganache, after installing, you'll see this page. I'm going to enable analytics. That's fine. So click continue, and I'm going to click start. All right, now Ganache is running. So what this is a personal blockchain. So it's essentially just a blockchain that runs on your computer. You can see all the accounts that are connected to the blockchain. You can see that they have balances of 100 Ether. These are the account addresses, which, we talked about earlier, are a representation of their public keys. You can see their private keys here by clicking Show Keys. All right. This basically gives us an HD wallet like we talked about in the previous sections, and that wallet can be rebuilt with this mnemonic seed phrase, okay? And yeah, we can connect to this blockchain like as a node essentially with this URL, which we'll do when we're building the capstone project. So this just gives you an idea of, what's kind of going on inside of here. We'll see all these features while we're building the project, but now you've got it installed and set up. All right, the next dependency is the Truffle framework. So on the Ganache page, if you just click Truffle Suite, this will give you the home page for Truffle. So Truffle is a framework for writing Ethereum smart contracts. It's going to allow you to develop smart contracts with the Solidity programming language, write tests against the smart contracts, deploy them to Ethereum blockchains, and also, run scripts and do so much more. So we're going to use pretty much all the features of Truffle when we build the Capstone project, but I want to give you a resource to look at here if you want to read more about Truffle. We can install Truffle from the command line. We're going to do it with npm. And we'll say npm install -- global, and we're going to tell it Truffle version. Now, really quickly, before we do this, I'm actually going to back up. I want you to use my specific version of Truffle because I want to avoid any conflicts when we're building the Capstone project, right? So see if Truffle's already installed. You say Truffle -v, or Truffle version, I believe is what it is. So either way, I don't have Truffle installed, but check your Truffle version. And if you do have one and it's not version 5.0.5, you're going to want to uninstall it and install the correct version. You can run the risk if you're an experienced developer and use a different Truffle version, but if you're not sure what you're doing, I highly recommend you uninstall any previous versions with npm uninstall -- global Truffle. All right. So I don't have it installed, so it's not going to do anything. All right. So now that you've done that, we can install the correct version of Truffle like this. Say npm install -- global Truffle, and then say at 5.0.5. That's the version we want to use to build the Capstone project. All right, it worked. So we can, let's just close PowerShell, reopen it, just to be safe, and say Truffle version. All right, there we go. We see that Truffle version 5.0.5 was installed. It comes with Solidity version 0.5.0, and we've got Node 9.10. Now we want to install Create React App as a command line tool. So what this is going to do is allow us to bootstrap new React projects without having to write too much code ourselves. It's really nice. We don't have to do a lot of configuration. We get a lot of stuff out of the box for free. So this is put out by Facebook. They made a lot of really intelligent choices, and I like using Create React App. So if you remember from our from the bootcamp section when we talked about intro to React, this is going to give us a framework for building the client-side application that we'll build in the Capstone project. Okay, so let's install Create React App from the command line like this. We're going to use npm. We'll say npm install -- global. Say create React App. We'll say at 2.1.3. All right, that's the specific version that we want to use to avoid any conflicts when we're building the Capstone project. So I know I keep repeating myself, but it's really important that you use my exact versions, particularly if you're not super comfortable with system administration. All right, so that's installed. And also, just like Truffle, you could uninstall this if you have a previous version and reinstall it with my version if you have a different version of Create React App installed on your computer.